When most people are asked what their favorite theme in media is, they would probably say something like zombies, or dinosaurs, or aliens, or war, or something like that. However, my favorite is none of these. Mine is the element of time. A bunch of my favorite movies are based around time. I enjoy a lot of television shows based around time. Heck, there have actually been days where I would study the laws of the space-time continuum.
Well, you're a nerd!
Wasn't planning on denying that. Anyways, one thing that I really like about the element of time in media is how it's portrayed in video games. There are tons of games with time-based storylines and plenty of characters with time-like powers, or as I like to refer them as, Chronokinetics. So today, I'm going to take a look at these time-powered entities and count down the ones I think are the best. Basic rules apply, one per franchise and only from games I've played. However, there's another rule that shall come into play. To be considered a chronokinetic in my eyes, they either have to have time-based powers or use a time-related device that they themselves created. So Link doesn't count, even though he uses the ocarina because he wasn't the one that made it. So without further said, it's time to start this countdown. Starting this list off is a rather obscure choice. I mean, for Pete's sake, the number 10 candidate is from Super Monkey Ball of all franchises. Yes, you just heard that right. There's a Chronokinetic in Super Monkey Ball. More specifically, the main antagonist of the second game, the evil Dr. Bad Boon. Now you're probably wondering, how the heck is this weird mixture of Dr. Wily and Donkey Kong at all Chronokinetic? Well, as explained in the manual of Super Monkey Ball 2, Dr. Bad Boon is actually from the future, and in the future, he fell in love with a young monkey named Mimi and wished to marry her. The only problem was that Mimi at that time was already married to Ai, the main protagonist of the series. Angered by this discovery, Dr. Bad Boon created a time machine and went back into the past when Ai and Mimi weren't married in order to steal Mimi's heart before Ai could. Also, it was because of this that Baby, Ai and Mimi's future son, used Bad Boon's time machine to also go back in the past to prevent Bad Boon from messing with the future. So, in other words, the entire plot of the Monkey Ball series was triggered by Bad Boon's time-traveling antics. However, since he doesn't actually do any time traveling in-game, I can't place him any higher. You know, with all the different themes behind the different Robot Masters and Mavericks, it's no surprise that there's a time-powered entity in the Mega Man series. In fact, there are actually two of them. Time Man from Mega Man Powered Up, and Dark Dizzy from Mega Man X5. However, I haven't played Powered Up, so I guess Dark Dizzy will have to do. Created by Sigma 3 years before the events of X5, Dark Dizzy is arguably one of the most powerful Mavericks created due to his immense power. He is found in a planetarium, which also contains a shuttle fuel tank that the Maverick Hunters are in need of. First, his personality. While he doesn't get a lot of screen time, meaning we don't get to see him enough to really find out how he acts, we do know that Dark Dizzy is rather sadistic, as seen in his dialogue in which he wants the space colony Eurasia to end millions of human and Reploid lives. But, like most Maverick bosses, what really made him stand out was his battle. In battle, he flies about, teleports, summons robot bats to attack you, sometimes grabs the player and bites him to drain his life energy, like a vampire, releases sonic waves when he's low on health, and, most notably, uses his special power, Dark Hold. Dark Hold freezes the player in time and allows Dark Dizzy to use a sonic wave or a baton attack. But surprisingly, even though he can freeze time and attack while you're stuck, the battle doesn't seem that cheap and has a fair difficulty. Overall, Dark Dizzy is a great example of a Chronokinetic and still remains as one of my favorite Mavericks in the series. What puts him lower on the list is the fact that he doesn't use his time abilities all that often. Oh well, a Chronokinetic is better than no Chronokinetic. If there's one puzzle game series that I really like, it's the Professor Layton series. Granted, the only game in the Layton series that I've currently played is the Unbound Future, but it's still fantastic. And with that, we have one of the main antagonists of Unbound Future, Dimitri Allen. Granted, I haven't fully beaten the game yet, so my apologies if I get some of the facts wrong. Anyways, sometime before the events of the game, Dimitri was collaborating with Bill Hawks and Layton's sweetheart Claire in the creation of a time machine. However, when Dimitri discovered a flaw in the time machine, he ordered the project to be put on hold until it was fixed, but Bill, having been secretly paid a lot of money for the project, tested the machine with the help of Claire. This unfortunately backfired, with Claire's life and Dimitri's lifelong work taken in the process. In order to get revenge on Bill for betraying him, Dimitri hatches a plan to capture Bill and other scientists with the assistance of Clive, a young man who also wants revenge on Bill for killing his parents in the explosion by creating a fake time machine under the identity of Dr. Alain Stangen that takes him, Bill, and the scientists 10 years into the future. He then orders Bill and the scientists to assist him in building a new time machine that will help him go back to when the explosion occurred and save Claire before she loses her life, all the while posing as future Layton in order to cover up his tracks. Now, I know what you're thinking. Does Dimitri really count as a chronokinetic? After all, he didn't create the time machine by himself. Well, yes, this is true, but he did still create it. So yes, he counts. Now, if there's any franchise that has tried to use time-based themes constantly and, for the most part, hasn't succeeded that much, it's Sonic the Hedgehog. It has several titles based around the theme of time, and most of the time, it doesn't work as well as it should. However, an exception to this is the 2011 game Sonic Generations. And now that I've said that, you know exactly where I'm going with this. The Time Eater. Yes, the Time Eater, a monstrous deity found by Eggman while in the depths of space after the events of Sonic Colors. After discovering of the Time Eater's capabilities of erasing time and space, Eggman decided to use its power to erase all of his past defeats. With the help of his past self, Eggman manages to turn Time Eater into a mechanical monster that he is able to control as he erases various moments in history and captures Sonic's companions. But of course, what most of us remember about this beast is his boss battle. Now, if you watched my top 15 Sonic the Hedgehog boss battles list, you know my thoughts about this fight, or more specifically the fight from the 3DS version, which I consider to be one of the best final bosses in the Sonic series. It's challenging, fun, and an overall spectacle. But before you ask, I can't say anything about the console fight because I have still yet to play it. But I digress. The Time Eater was a nice inclusion to the game, even though he can be seen as a mere plot convenience to some. Let's be honest, a majority of you saw this one coming. At number 6, we have the Pokemon of Time himself and the mascot of my favorite Pokemon game, Dialga from Pokemon Diamond. As the entity of time in the Pokemon universe, Dialga has a lot going for him. So we're going to go into great detail about this Pokemon, starting with his design. Dialga's design is based off a sauropod, a dinosaur whose appearance was similar to that of a brontosaurus. Besides that, a very noticeable part of his design is the wing-like structure on his back, which actually helps him change the flow of time as seen in the Mystery Dungeon games. Next, we have his stats and moveset. With a base stat total of 680, making Dialga matchup ranks with Lugia, Mewtwo, and Rayquaza, Dialga can be quite a reliable Pokemon to have on your team. As for his moveset, well, to put it simply, Dialga can learn some pretty devastating attacks, such as Ancient Power, Metal Claw, and his iconic attack, Roar of Time. Now we have his origins. According to Pokemon folklore, Dialga is one of the 3 Pokemon created when Arceus first formed the universe, the other 2 being Palkia and Giratina. Dialga was tasked to be the ruler of time, while Palkia was chosen to control space and Giratina was given the task of ruling over antimatter. But when it comes to the creation of Dialga, it's rumored that he and Palkia were both based off the legend of Izanami and Izanagi. Now, you're probably wondering, how are his abilities as a chronokinetic? Well, besides the fact that he rules over time, he can also speed it up, slow it down, and completely stop it. Plus, the previously mentioned Roar of Time. Overall, not only does Dialga stand as one of the best chronokinetics in video games, but also stands as my favorite legendary Pokemon in Gen 4. Yes, even more than Palkia, Giratina, and even Darkrai. Ooh! If there's one franchise that has quite the confusing storyline, it's Kingdom Hearts. And that's without the time travel elements present in the series. Now, a bunch of you are probably thinking I'm going to be talking about young Xehanort from Dream Drop Distance, except I have yet to play it. Besides, there's an even better chronokinetic in the series. Luxord. As member number 10 of Organization 13, Luxord stands as my personal favorite member of the organization and is my second favorite Kingdom Hearts character. First off, he's probably the most unique of the organization members, both in personality and in battle. For example, his boss fight doesn't even have health bars, but instead time bars that go down as time keeps going and whenever damage is dealt. As for personality, it's pretty unique as well. Luxord sees life as a game, and likes to gamble his chances and take risks for his entertainment, though sometimes this can backfire. However, he uses his time abilities in rather unorthodox manners, to the point that one might not even know that's his power. Second, we have his weapon. Cards. Sound stupid? Not even close. As we discovered from Gambit of the X-Men universe, cards can make some pretty awesome weapons, and Luxord is no exception. Not only are they powerful weapons that can range up to 10 feet long, but they can also affect the laws of time, like freezing time and slowing it down. Also, here's a little fun fact. Every single one of his card weapons are actually named after tarot cards. Kind of like...
This is our grand finale!
No! I already made an obscure Persona reference. There's no need to make another one. Alright everyone, it's time for some Final Fantasy. However, this time, we're moving our focus to the love it or hate it title, Final Fantasy VIII. Granted, I've played very little of this game, so once again, my apologies if I get some of the facts wrong. And since I've said Final Fantasy VIII, most of you will know where I'm going with this. Ultimecia. What's to be said about Ultimecia? Well, how about that she's a pretty good villain. She's a sorceress from the far future who is destined to be destroyed by the witch-hunting organization Seed, and plans on bringing about time compression to the world, in which Ultimecia would consume the very fabric of time and space and become a living god, thus preventing her fate of destruction. In order to pull this off, Ultimecia sends her consciousness back in time and possesses Adea Kramer, a sorceress from the past and the co-creator of Seed, and uses her as a pawn for her plans. As for her abilities as a Chronokinetic, Ultimecia is quite talented. As I said earlier, she's able to send herself through time, but that's just the minimal amount of her abilities. As seen in Dissidia, Ultimecia can also freeze time completely and spawn small energy blades to attack her opponent. Overall, Ultimecia is quite the Chronokinetic. It's no wonder that she's considered one of the most powerful villains in the Final Fantasy series. Green Scorpion would approve of this.
It is only natural for time to flow. Why stop it?
At number 3, we have one of the greatest scythe wielders in video games and my main in Soul Calibur, Zasalamel. Now a bunch of you who know this guy are probably thinking, how does he count as a Chronokinetic? Well, allow me to explain. Before the events of the Soul Calibur series, Zasalamel was part of a tribe whose job was to protect the legendary sword Soul Calibur. However, Zasalamel, angered by the fact that Soul Calibur was not to be used even in the most grave of times, tried to take Soul Calibur for himself, but was shunned by the tribe because of this. After being banished, Zasalamel began studying the art of magic and managed to successfully pull off a reincarnation spell upon him, making him unaffected by the flow of time. He would still age and die, but after dying, he would reincarnate with his past identity and all of his past memories. The fact that he managed to break out of the bonds of time justifies him as a Chronokinetic in my eyes, as he had time under his control and is unaffected by it. That and he has the ability to look into the future. As a fighter, Zasalamel is, like I said, my favorite character in the entire Soul Calibur series. His playstyle is a lot of fun to use, and his critical finish is one of my favorites in Soul Calibur 4. But now, his character. Even though time doesn't affect him, he soon becomes tired of constantly living, so he decides to obtain both Soul Calibur and Soul Edge and fuse their power together in hopes that it would be powerful enough to end his constant reincarnations. After he becomes the monstrous Abyss and is then defeated, he finds all hope lost until he looks into the future and sees how wonderful the world is to be. And, wanting this future to become a reality, seeks both Soul Calibur and Soul Edge and wishes to fuse them together and use them as his tool to make the glorious future that awaits. In his ending in Soul Calibur 4, his wish comes true and he continues to remain as the guide of mankind for the rest of eternity, leading it down the path of good progress. It's kind of interesting to see a character like him. He started as a character that only cared for whatever benefited him, until he had a change of heart and started to aim for mankind's development into a better race. It's no wonder he's such a popular character among the fan base. Admit it, you all saw this coming.
Now you're on my time, you little skunk! Give me the crystals!
If you're a follower of my countdowns, then you would know how much I absolutely love Dr. Nefarious Troopy from the Crash Bandicoot series. As the self-acclaimed master of time, he's definitely no pushover. He first appeared in Crash Bandicoot Warped as one of the main antagonists and the creator of the Time Twister machine, the very reason that the events of Warped ever happened. He's also the game's third boss fight, which, as you know, is my favorite boss of the series and my third favorite boss of all time. If you want more information on that, just watch my Crash Bandicoot bosses list. But for now, let's move on. He then appeared in Crash Team Racing as an unlockable character, in which he could be unlocked by beating all of his best times in time trial or through a cheat code. Oh, cheat codes, how I love thee! He then returned in Wrath of Cortex as a mere cameo character in the beginning of the game and as an obstacle in some of the levels. But then he took the crowning role of main antagonist in Crash Bandicoot Entranced for the Game Boy Advance, in which he teams up with the mind control master Entrance in brainwashing Coco and Crunch and making them work alongside them. Unfortunately for him, he failed to capture Crash, which ended up leading to his downfall. After appearing in Crash Nitro Kart with the same role as CTR, he appeared in Crash Twinsanity as a boss, teaming up with Embryo and Engine in order to find the Evil Twins treasure collection, until they're defeated by Spyro. Yeah, don't question it. Overall, N-Troopy is an amazing Chronokinetic. They don't call him the Master of Time for nothing, but the question is, who can top N-Troopy? Well, let's find out. Well, we've gone through 9 of the greatest time-powered entities in video games, but now we're getting to the really good stuff. What we have coming up is a character whose very life is based around time. A character who's the very reason that the game he's from even happened. A character who is one of the best characters in the franchise he's from. And they call him...
Right on time. Welcome to the Time Rift.
Aeon. Where do I even begin with this awesome Time Lord from the severely underrated Castlevania Judgment? Well, there's a lot to cover, so let's start with his purpose in the story. The plot of Judgment revolves around Galamoth, one of Dracula's greatest enemies, sending his servant the Time Reaper 10,000 years into the past to kill Dracula so that Galamoth can take over his empire. Aeon took notice of this and began to plan out how to stop the Time Reaper from ruining history. So he created the Time Rift and took 13 warriors from different time periods, those being the 13 playable characters, and placed them in several trials in order to see who would be the best to take out the Time Reaper. That alone gets him onto the list, but we haven't even talked about his playstyle. In gameplay, he revolves almost entirely around time. His sword is a giant clock blade, he has the power to freeze time, and then there's his hyper attack, Requiem of the 13th Hour. Just watch for yourself.
This will just take a minute. Not even the storied Belmont clan can stand against the power of time. And time marches on. Right on time.
See what I mean? As for his other attacks, he also has quick kicks, extended slashes, and even laser shots. Overall, Aeon is the perfect Chronokinetic. He uses time extremely well, and as a character, he's such a thrilling guy. I'm the One-Winged Angel, and I actually liked Castlevania Judgment.